It looks like progress, sounds like insight. It wears the language of healing like a second skin. But underneath the affirmations, the rituals, the mantras, there is a wound still wide open, a grief still untouched, a memory still locked behind the gates of distraction. We live in a culture obsessed with healing. Books, podcasts, courses, crystals. Endless talk about boundaries and energy and vibration. We say we're letting go, that we're choosing peace, that we've outgrown the past. But sometimes the performance of healing becomes the very thing that stops us from actually feeling. Because real healing isn't pretty. It's not always peaceful, not always graceful. Sometimes it's raw, muddled, regressive. Sometimes it pulls us backward before it lets us move forward. But in the age of curated recovery, there's pressure to look like we're okay. So we learn to say the right things. We speak of growth, of forgiveness, of self-love. We tell the story of our trauma like it happened to someone else. We intellectualize the pain until it becomes a thesis. And we call that closure. But the body knows better. The body knows when we're skipping steps, when we're jumping to acceptance without ever touching the rage, when we're skipping grief by drowning it in routines that look like self-care but feel more like avoidance. Dr. Gabor Maté, a trauma expert and physician, often says, "We cannot heal what we do not feel." And yet, feeling is exactly what most of us are trying to avoid. Not because we're weak, but because we were never shown how. Some of us grew up in homes where emotion was dangerous, where sadness was punished, where anger was ridiculed. So we dissociated, we numbed, we adapted, we became hyperfunctional instead of emotional. And now, even in healing spaces, we use the same survival strategies. We hide behind insight, behind performance, behind the identity of someone who has moved on. Real healing is not a brand. It is not a trend. It is not something we can post or package. It is slow. It is repetitive. It is often invisible. And it rarely fits neatly into an Instagram caption. Because real healing asks us to stop performing. It asks us to be with what hurts, not fix it, not analyze it. Just be with it. That sounds simple, but it is not. It means sitting with the ache we've spent a lifetime running from, the heartbreak we rationalized, the rage we turned inward, the abandonment we repackaged as independence. We talk about letting go, but letting go means grieving, not in a poetic, candlelit way, but in the messy, heaving, disorienting way. It means crying until the sound leaves your throat. It means remembering what you promised yourself you'd forget. It means facing the moments when love was withheld and telling the truth about how much it cost you. Spiritual bypassing is the attempt to transcend pain without honoring it. We jump to perspective. We say, everything happens for a reason. Not because we believe it, but because we can't bear the alternative, that some things were just cruel. That some people were just careless, that what happened really, truly hurt. Healing is not about denying that pain. It's about letting it speak. But speaking takes courage, takes slowing down. And most of us have built lives that do not allow for that. We stay busy, distracted, overcommit, and we call that progress. But busy is often just another mask. We decorate our pain with productivity. We keep our schedules full so we don't have to feel the void. We stay in motion because stillness reveals the truth we're trying to outrun. Sometimes we heal through fixing others. We become therapists, coaches, healers. We guide people through their wounds because ours are too tender to face. We talk about boundaries while ignoring our own. We preach vulnerability without practicing it. This is not judgment. This is a mirror. The truth is, many of us are healing in public and hurting in private. We're praised for our insight, but we're starving for connection. We look composed, but we're lonely. We sound wise, but we're numb. That is not healing. That is adaptation. Real healing is not a state. It is a relationship with your pain, with your past, with the parts of you that were silenced, shamed, or split off. And relationships take time. They require patience, curiosity, compassion, not just once, but over and over, especially on the days when the wounds feel fresh again, especially when the old patterns call us back, especially when we feel like we should be farther along. You don't have to be farther along. You just have to be honest. Where does it still hurt? Where are you pretending? Where are you polished on the outside and aching underneath? These are the questions real healing asks, and it does not need you to answer them perfectly. It only needs you to stop hiding from them, because the truth is, you are allowed to not be okay. You are allowed to have days where the pain still wins. You are allowed to revisit wounds you thought were closed. That's not failure. That's being human. The goal is not to erase the pain. The goal is to integrate it, to hold it with kindness, to stop running, to stop numbing, to sit in the fire and know that it will not consume you. You have already survived it. Now it is time to feel it. And that, finally, is where healing begins. And that's where resistance creeps in again. Quiet, convincing, familiar. Tells you this work is indulgent, that you've already done enough, that going back into the pain is regression. But it isn't. It's returning with new eyes. It's standing where you once collapsed and realizing you are still here. The discomfort doesn't mean you're broken. It means something real is happening. Because real healing never asks for your perfection, only your presence. And presence is terrifying when you've spent years surviving by disappearing. You were praised for being strong, for being resilient, for making the best of things. So now, when your body trembles, or your voice cracks, or the old sadness returns uninvited, you feel like a fraud. But survival was never the same as recovery. One keeps you alive, the other lets you live. And healing is not a path upward. It's circular, spiral-shaped. You will revisit the same pain again and again. Not because you failed, but because each time you arrive a little different, a little braver, a little more able to stay with what hurts without collapsing into it. Grief comes in waves. Shame peels in layers. Rage speaks in riddles before it speaks in truth. You can't rush this. You can't spiritualize it away. You can't distract it into silence. And why would you? There is so much wisdom in what you feel. The sadness says, I wanted more. The anger says, something was stolen. The fear says, I don't feel safe yet. And the numbness? It says, I was overwhelmed for so long. I had to shut down. That shutdown wasn't weakness. It was intelligence. Your nervous system did what it had to do. But now it's learning there is more than shutdown and survival. There is connection. There is expression. There is choice. But choice only returns when we stop pretending we're healed just because we're functioning. Functioning is not the measure. Aliveness is. Do you feel joy, not just relief? Do you feel connection, not just compliance? Do you feel like you belong in your own body? These are not checkboxes. They are invitations to slow down, to stop performing, to stop building a personality around what looks okay. Because the truth is, your healing doesn't need to be understood by others to be real. Sometimes it looks like resting when everyone else is chasing goals. Sometimes it looks like crying over something that happened 10 years ago. Sometimes it looks like letting go of who you were applauded for being so you can finally be who you are. And that person, they are not broken. They are just unfinished. You don't need a new identity. You don't need to be more enlightened. You just need to come back to yourself. The self that existed before the silence, before the shutdown, before you were told that healing meant hiding anything inconvenient. It doesn't. Real healing is inconvenient. It interrupts patterns. It upsets relationships. It makes you say no to things you once accepted. It makes you stop blaming yourself for how others failed to show up. It makes you reclaim what you outsourced: your worth, your voice, your truth. And maybe, for the first time in your life, you stop asking, "What's wrong with me?" and start asking, "What happened to me?" Because what happened to you is not who you are. You are not your defense mechanisms. You are not your emotional armor. You are not your silence. You are what remains when you let it all go. And even if you don't feel ready, even if you're still pretending in some places, the very fact that you're listening to this now, thinking about what might be real beneath all the noise, means something is shifting. That's enough. Let that be enough. If this found you in a moment of silence you didn't know you needed, subscribe. Because healing isn't a destination, it's a conversation. And you don't have to do it alone.